Welcome, everyone, to Compassionate Caregiving. This is honoring humanity through end of life planning. You will learn, number one, the 3 phases of end of life and the interventions to use for comfort in all 3 phases. You're going to learn, number 2, how planning ahead makes end of life better by 80 to 90%. That is in my experience, and I have a lot of it. I've been honored and blessed to be with over 1,000 people at the end of life. The ones that went well, and there weren't many, it was because they had planned ahead, no matter what the disease process was. And number 3, we're going to talk about how death is having a rebirth and the new progressive choices for celebration and disposition. If I may, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Suzanne O'Brien. I am a former hospice and oncology nurse. I'm a founding member of NHPCO's End of Life Doula Council, and I'm a founding member and former vice president of NEDA, the National End of Life Doula Alliance. I'm the founder and creator of the International Doula Givers Institute. This is my life's purpose, and I will do everything to make sure that everyone has access to the information that can help them and their families have a beautiful, positive end of life. So learning about end of life and planning ahead has 3 main gifts. Number 1, empowering with the truth, the skills, and reducing fear. Number 2, allowing the grief and bereavement period to be as healthy as possible and healing past grief. And number 3, inspiring about life and learning, the green options that help heal our planet. So this is feedback from the many people that we have given trainings to, what the feedback of learning in this space has provided them. And the benefits are invaluable on so many levels of empowerment, of healing, and of inspiration. That's a win across the board. Now, 9 out of 10 people say they want to be cared for at home when they become terminally ill. This was a National Hospice Organization Gallup poll in 1996. Every statistic survey is the same. You can take a minute and ask yourself the same question. At the end of this beautiful journey, where would you want to be cared for? Do you want to be in a hospital? You can be. Do you want to be in a nursing home, or do you want to be home? I think most of us, and again, all the surveys, 9 out of 10 people say they want to be home. But here's the issue, and there are many gaps in the present system. Families usually don't know the first thing about how to care for someone at the end of life. Yet, as a hospice nurse, that is exactly what we expect them to do. And we're going to uncover why there are so many gaps in the present day system and why the end of lives, for the most part, are not going as well as they should. I'll put it that way and be very gentle. So there's something that I call the hospice gap. What is that? The hospice is a beautiful model of care in theory. How it started was very much the way that the doula givers model is today. But when the reimbursement structure entered the picture, things changed. And it became a reimbursed offer, which means that, and I'm trying to be very gentle with my words here, which means that no matter how much care or lack thereof you give that patient and family on hospice services, you're paid the same daily per diem. So unfortunately, what happened is people are trying to stretch their margins. And as a hospice nurse, I was only there for 1 hour once a week if my patient was what you call stable. It makes me physically ill to say that to you. 1 hour once a week. And the model is this, that as the hospice nurse, I'm responsible for teaching the family how to do that end of life care for their loved one when they usually don't know the first thing about how to do that. They're petrified. They come on services very late for hospice usually. And I'm there for 1 hour once a week. Tell me how well this model can work. It can't, and it's not. So a Medicare study has determined that a hospice worker is only in the home of an end-of-life patient for approximately 30 minutes per day on average. 30 minutes on average. This means that 98% of hands-on care is performed by untrained family caregivers that are usually petrified. And I can't say I blame them. I think it's a cruel model at the moment. Now, my patients, when I was a hospice nurse, I'd come into the home. I'm taking care of somebody who is leaving this world. So there's a lot that goes along with that for the individual. And they'd say to me, Suzanne, look what I'm doing in their hospital bed. Suzanne, look what I'm doing to my family. I feel terrible. Look at the stress I'm putting on them. And they weren't wrong. People weren't sleeping, people weren't eating, and fear can paralyze us. So we are literally checked out. So you have to picture the person who's having an end of life feeling guilty about the stress that they're putting on their family members for them having to take care of them without knowing the first thing how to do that work. That is absolutely cruel. So how can we support patients and families? This is the whole premise of Doula Givers Institute, is to give back the skill on how to care for your loved one at the end of life for free before you ever need it. This was a skill that 100 years ago was handed down generation to generation. It's all but lost, and it's creating these end of lives to be 1,000 times more painful for not just the person dying, but for the family as well. So let's just take a deep breath in. And I know this is a heavy conversation, but I think we just forgot. I know we just forgot that death is not a medical experience. It's a human one. And we've been dying for thousands of years. And in all different cultures and religions, death used to be revered as a sacred, natural rite of passage. Today, that's all but lost. So just this remembering that, wait a minute, oh yeah, this is natural. People have been doing it for thousands of years. We know how to do this. So bringing that awareness back, and then all the support that we know, can change everything. 100 years ago, this was a skill, caring for the dying, that was handed down generation to generation. People died at home, they were cared for at home, and a grandmother used to teach a grandchild how to do this natural care. The Doula Givers' 3 phases of end-of-life care model are the shock phase, the stabilization phase, and the transition phase. When you're caring for your loved one who gets a terminal diagnosis, it's very important to understand that the first phase is usually that shock phase. And this is when someone gets a terminal diagnosis. Oftentimes there's an overwhelming feeling of shock for both the patient and their loved ones. And this shock can present itself in many ways, such as depression, denial, anger, and withdrawal. So what can you do to support your loved one? Be present, build trust, meet them where they are emotionally in their process, and give them back control by asking, what can I do for you? I would ask this to the person that's having their end of life and to the main caregiver who's been traveling this journey right alongside of that end of life patient. What can I do for you? How are you doing? What do you need today that I can support you in? There are 3 questions that you want to ask on every visit, every day that you are with your loved one at the end of life. And if you ask these 3 questions, you'll be of the highest service to them and to the family, no matter where they are in their journey. So this is incredibly important that we remember this, because no matter what the disease process is, no matter where they are in their process, when you ask these 3 questions, again, you will reach the highest level of support for them. The first question is, are there any acute issues? An acute issue could be thought of as an immediate need. An example would be high levels of pain, nausea, exhaustion, whatever's jumping out at you. We want to know what that is and handle that immediately, get them the support they need. The second question is, are there any safety concerns? There's 2 major safety issues that will always happen with an end-of-life process. We don't know when they're going to happen, but they'll always be part of that end-of-life journey. One day that person will not be able to stand and or walk, and one day that person will not be able to swallow. And as the body is declining, it's getting weaker. So fall risk and all that's entailed. So we want to be ahead of that. So the second question is, are there any safety concerns? And the third question is, what other support system do they have? At the end of life, let's take the tasking off of that main caregiver. Let's allow them to be the wife, allow them to be the husband, let them get some rest. Support them in this journey as well. Phase number 2 is a stabilization phase. And when we get all those acute issues handled, things are stable. And that's the perfect time to have conversations and people reflect on their lives and do life reviews in this phase. So, what can you do as an intervention? You can talk to them about their life, talk to them about what's important, if there's any legacy projects they want to do at this point, or any other questions that need to be asked. And again, you need to go at their pace. But one of the main things in this space is forgiveness, because welcome to the human being experience. And at the end of life, when we're there, there's something organic about the body wanting to clear out and make sense of all the things we've been through that we haven't really processed. And I will tell that the people that have utilized the power of forgiveness have been the most beautiful end of lives I have ever seen. So forgiveness is for others, and forgiveness is also for yourself. So you can help your client, your family member. You can give forgiveness, receive forgiveness, and let them know that that is something that is so important to be able to do. Phase number 3 is the actual transition phase. And this is a really important step, because just think of that birthing of that baby in labor. It can go very quick. It can be painful. It can be scary. And the same as end of life. The steps and stages can go very quick in this space, but I want you to know what's really beautiful that I recognize right away is that no matter what disease process in the very end, how much money you had, who you are, the body tends to shut down systematically in the same way. The body knows how to shut itself down. We can assist if there's things needed for interventions for comfort, and we're so blessed to have them in our country and in many countries. But the body knows how to do this. This is a natural process. So one of the most important things that you can learn as a caregiver is the way the body physically and naturally shuts down, so that you can offer suggestions for interventions for comfort if needed, or let your family know that what they're seeing is a natural part of the end of life process and not to be afraid. Planning ahead makes end of life better by 80 to 90%, no matter what the disease process. This has been my experience, and I have a lot of it. This is a win across the board. For something that's 100% guaranteed, when you have that kind of outcome, because you've planned ahead and put some answers to questions that really need to be asked in a blueprint, in a plan, in a roadmap for your family, and to get 80 to 90%, it's something that every single person should be doing for multiple reasons. So one of the parts to that is called an advance directive. There's 2 main parts to it. So one is a living will, which would state what you would want or not want for end of life care. And this is incredibly important to think about quality of life and where's that benchmark. And then the second part is the person that you're going to name to speak your wishes for you that you've already chosen that are in the living will. And there's a lot of misunderstanding or confusion about the advance directive and the wording around it. A healthcare proxy in the United States, also known as a healthcare surrogate, medical power of attorney, just to make things confusing for people, all means the same thing. But in all the documentation, it says that the healthcare proxy is the person that will make medical decisions for you if you can't make them for yourself. Not exactly incorrect, but not correct either. They're not making the decisions for you. They're speaking the decisions you've already made if you can't speak for yourself. There's a huge difference there. So those are in the living will. I'm just asking my loved one, my friend, if there comes a place where I can't speak for myself, are you comfortable with what I'm asking you to share on my behalf? Big, big difference there. Now, here's another doula giver's pearl for you, is that an advance directive is not legally binding. In all the verbiage that you'll see, it says an advance directive is a legal document that would say what you would want or not want for end of life care. But it's not legally binding. And what do I mean by that? I mean that at the end of the day, if the doctor decides that they do not want to follow your advance directive, the law's on their side. So you would say, Suzanne, why do we have them then? That's a great question. And the reason they were created is to protect the doctor, if they followed your advance directive that the family can't sue them. So these are really incredibly important because I've had this happen in my personal journey in oncology, where a doctor would not follow the advance directive of somebody who was so critically advanced, wanted to go home on hospice, and they wouldn't let them. This doesn't usually happen, I will say. Most doctors are really supportive if you have clearly stated your wishes and done your work ahead of time. But you occasionally will come up against this. So what you want to know, and here's your secret weapon that is a doula giver's pearl, is that when the time is appropriate, in the United States, you need something called a MOLST or a POLST form. POLST is national. MOLST is used for most of the East Coast, but both are the same. So MOLST stands for Medical Order Life-Sustaining Treatment. A POLST stands for Physician Order Life-Sustaining Treatment. These are legally binding and these are actual medical orders. So all you need to do is take your advance directive wishes that you've already taken in your living will portion, and you need to transfer them, because they're mostly the same questions, into a POLST or MOLST form. Caveat is that MOLST and POLST forms are usually not able to be done unless you are very, very advanced in age or you're advanced in your disease process. So there is a window there, but if you've already done the work, all you have to do is, when you're qualified to do it, is have your doctor do a MOLST or POLST form, and that is a medical order and it needs to be followed by law. It is legally binding. That's your secret weapon. It will go in the system and follow you. So we have a beautiful hospice nurse who took the doula giver's certification training. And she tells a story about caring for her father at the end of life. And he was very advanced in his illness, and she was his caretaker. And she went to his doctor, his geriatric doctor, with him. And she said, I'd like him to do a POLST form. And the doctor had no idea what she was talking about. So I said, Kathy, where did you learn about the POLST form? And she said, from doula givers training. And so I feel like in our world today, we're so incredibly overstimulated with information that so many things get lost. And if you've seen a doctor lately, how many patients they have to see and all of the insanity that's coming along with paperwork and reimbursement, and like, where's the actual care of the patient? There's no time to actually do that anymore. And time is your greatest medicine we have. And so as a hospice nurse and a geriatric doctor, not knowing about the POLST form, I think we're getting more well known, but these are really important doula giver pearls for you to know, to advocate for your patients and for your family. So death is having a rebirth. And I love saying it because there is so much similarity between bringing a baby in and helping somebody leave this world. There really, really are. And I know that may seem really hard to put your mind in that space, but I want to say to you that ceremony and ritual and love and support of the community and slowing down this space for end of life creates, again, a whole different sacredness to it. And it is equally as important. So what's beautiful about today in our world, because we always want to reach for, it's very easy to point out what's not working well, but it's really important to point out what is. What are the positive things? So we have many different options coming about, which are absolutely gorgeous. And when I say rebirth, again, because we're bringing back the old. We're bringing back, it's only in the last about 120 years we've gotten lost. So home wakes, something that has been done for thousands of years, was that people died at home. They wanted to be at home, and people stayed at home for their wakes, also known as a home funeral. And this is an incredibly empowering event because it allows ritual to be back. It allows people to slow down, to honor that loved one, to come in and to process. And there's a lot of traditions that talk about a 3-day home wake. You can do what's important to you and what feels right to you. But I also want to invite you to have an open heart and an open mind, because there's so much documentation about immediately when someone has their end of life, that immediate time after they die is like an imprinting for how your grief and bereavement's going to go. And I know as a hospice nurse, I would go in and to pronounce people who've had their end of life. And one of the things that I always did, because most of my families were not ready at all for this experience, is to almost be like blocking them from immediately calling the funeral home can come. I've seen them come in 20 minutes, whisk that body away, and that family has no idea what just happened. So I'm like, don't rush. Who needs to come? You can slow this down. I literally, when I'm there doing this, I can only be one place at a time. Having a vigil plan, having an after death plan. What do you want to happen? And considering to have even a few hours a day. And if you really want the 3 days, that's an amazing thing. And the benefits to this 3-day home wake, in my book, The Good Death, I talk about this exact subject. And I use the example and story of a 17-year-old boy who had a traumatic sudden end of life. And he was so beloved. And the family had the wherewithal to bring his body home and to have a 3-day home wake. And the transformation that takes place from day 1 to day 3 within that dynamic of a sudden, tragic, young end of life. If the jubilation that they ended with of celebrating his life, the feelings of love that they described, if that can be the experience with that scenario, what can it do for the rest of us? So there's so much benefit to that. So really readopting the home wakes, really important. Now, some creative ways are coming through. There's something called a living wake, and it's also known as a funeral. Yes, it's not spelled incorrectly there with the capitals. That's how it's supposed to be. Emphasized is a funeral. And people have said, well, I want to hear what everyone's saying. They're saying all these really nice things about me. I want to hear them. I want to be there. And so people are choosing to be part of their life celebrations. There's some examples in the book of somebody in her 30s had a living wake, and our beautiful Shotzi in her late 80s who had a funeral. So there are options that are empowering, but also bringing back the ceremony to all of this. Natural green burial. I think all of us are getting very conscious about our choices and the impact they have on the planet. And immediately when I was working in this space and there's no judgment and there's no right or wrong. Well, let me rephrase that. I think there is a wrong choice. And I think the wrong choice is when we make choices without being informed and without being educated and without having them be subjected. If we're making choices based on other people's pressure, if we don't have all the information and they're uneducated and uninformed, that is a bad choice. So what are the choices? So there are, and again, you can choose whatever you want, but it needs to be your choice and it needs to be informed. So there are new options called natural and or green burials, which means that you go right back into the earth. So you're not embalmed. You are put in biodegradable caskets or shrouds that will break down into the natural composition of the earth yet again, contributing back to the earth, not detracting from it. And again, no judgment, but this is really important. We know how much our earth is suffering. And I often think we have 78 million people right now over the age of 65 in the US, only in the US. All over the world, we have aging. If each one of them got embalmed and put in a non-biodegradable casket and put in the earth, what would that do to the planet structure? We're already challenged. So this might be an option that you want to consider. Also, the cost is a lot less than a standard funeral. So cost, I think, is something we really want to look at. We want to look at cost ahead of time of things. Water cremations, one of my favorite. So there's water cremation now and human composting. So water cremation will be a process with alkaline hydrolysis and will bring the body back into its natural mineral composition to the extent, by the way, you are made up of minerals and water, about 72% of you. And when you're reduced to your natural rich mineral composition, it is so organic and rich that it can be used as fertilizer. It is the most, from all my research, and I've done a lot, it is the most green option for the environment that there is. And the cost is a lot less, again, of standard funeral practices. Human composting, yes, we did say that. So there are human composting machines that the body goes into that can be made into compost. They're mixed with bark and some different things, but then can be used as compost for the garden and brought back into enhancing Mother Earth instead of detracting. And what about if you didn't have any money? Dying's expensive. Dying is really expensive today. How did it get like that? But I think we know because we've put our heads in the sand a bit of all the options and given away our power. However, if you or someone is interested in body donation, you can do that for $0. You can donate your body to a medical school that will allow future doctors to learn, to hone their craft and their skills so they can be better practitioners out in the world. And they're very respectful of that, they're very appreciative of the donation, and they're very respectful. Lots of them will have a ceremony at the end and return the ashes to you. So if you don't have a lot of financing, and I think the standard funeral right now is somewhere between $7,000 and $11,000. Who has that to just... There's a lot that I can say around that, but who has that, number one, but also it doesn't have ritual to it, and it's not personalized. It's very quick and it's very, devoid of what's really needed in this space for ceremony. So I'm going to give you a resource to find a body donation medical school. Now, I want you to be very mindful that you have to have great discernment today, that anyone can put up a shiny website and say anything on it. But for this is the recommended space that if you are interested in this, these schools have been vetted and they do the right thing by honoring the body and the families. You go to the Anatomical Board of the State of Florida School of Medicine, and you go under the tab that says U.S. Programs by State. Look up your state and it will list the medical schools that take body donation. You can contact them. You can ask any questions about anything. And if that is an option for you and an option for you to share, which I think it really is. And it's a beautiful offering. Your body's going to good use. And again, there are people that don't have funds to put on end of life. And this might be something that feels really good emotionally, but also very sound financially for them as an option as well. I go between, if you want to know mine, I was going between water cremation and, well, first it was natural burial and then it's water cremation because I really love that. And then it's also body donation because I know from being a medical practitioner what it's like to have the ability to actually train on a real person, or honing your skills is invaluable. So those are my choices now. We'll let you know which one we choose at the end. So this is what I really want to emphasize, is that planning ahead and thinking about it now makes the end of life better by 80 to 90%, no matter what the disease process is. And I want to thank you for being part of this talk today and being willing to explore what truly means to honor humanity through talking about this in end-of-life planning and making conscious choices. There's no wrong choice, but doing it while we're not faced with illness, while there's nothing in front of us where we can gather our information and make informed, educated, subjective decisions for ourselves changes everything. So most people leave conversations like this feeling a sense of relief, like, okay, right, we just forgot death is not a medical experience, it's a human one. And at the same time, where do I start with all of this? And that question is exactly why I created the Quality of Life Aging Well Level 1 Peace of Mind Planner. It is said that everyone 18 or older should have their advance directive done. Now, we know we're probably not going to get every 18-year-old to do it. I can't even get some older people to do it. And again, it's not for me to force people, but it's for me to share the importance of. 90% of people say discussing end-of-life care with loved ones is important. 90%, yet only 27% have actually done so. This is by the Conversation Project survey. Now, 57% of people also say that they think the process is complicated or time-consuming. So we avoid things that are like that. But in just one guided session, you'll walk away with understanding what quality of life means to you and how that will be the benchmark for all future care decisions. Your personal care preferences and wishes known, guidance all the way through to life celebrations, and again, choosing a final resting place. There are choices. And no, you do not need to spend thousands of dollars to have a beautiful, tailored plan. This is what's so incredibly important to understand, is not only are we spending so much money because we're trying to put it together at the end, we're supposed to be in our grief and bereavement at that moment, but we go into the next default, which is trying to put a ceremony together and all the arrangements and spending money. We're not even thinking clearly, but there's no ritual to it. It's just thrown out there, and that's not working. You do not need to spend a lot of money to honor your loved one. Quite the opposite. So why this planner is important? Because it prevents crisis decisions. It reduces family conflict. I don't think I've met any families that without something already outlined for their loved one completely agreed across the board of what to do next. It protects your loved ones emotionally and financially. This is this time that they are supposed to be grieving the changing form of a loved one, not to be trying to put this all together and to figure this all out. This is one of the most important things we can do for our loved ones. Planning last minute is very, very costly. It's like trying to put a wedding on in a weekend. It doesn't work. So families often tell us that this process saves them thousands of dollars and immeasurable emotional stress. And I'm not, I feel like the emotional stress part is probably one of the most important things. The spending money that you don't need to is a close second, but that stress that you go through, it's not a wonder that we have traumatic grief right now with so many different regrets when we look back on. But more than anything, again, it brings peace. So what I hear most from families is, I wish I had known what to expect and what they wanted. I wish I knew what my mom wanted, what her choices were. Without a plan, most people feel unsure, overwhelmed, afraid that they're going to do it wrong. They want to honor their loved one. With a peace of mind plan, people feel calm, confident, supported, relieved. This is a shift from fear to grounding, knowing they have a roadmap and a blueprint to follow. It gives them a container for their grief, but also to honor you and to give you what you want and what you wish for. So what families have shared about the PMP is families tell us that this was the greatest gift their mom ever gave them. This is one daughter, and she says that as hard as it was saying goodbye to their mother, she had everything chosen, and it was her and her two brothers. And she said knowing exactly what she wanted made it so much easier for her and her brothers. This is love in action. This is one of the greatest gifts you can give to your family at probably one of the hardest times of their life. The level 1 peace of mind planner is just $200, and it comes with 100% money back guarantee. If you don't feel that you received that value or more, you can receive a full refund. There's no questions asked. This is about serving you. This is about, we know what makes a positive end of life. After working with over 1,000 families at the end of life, these are the elements that allow them to have a positive passing. Everyone should do the quality of life, aging well, level 1 peace of mind planner, not just for them, but for those they love. If what you've heard today resonates with you and you want to give yourself and your family one of the greatest gifts you can ever give them, I warmly invite you to join me for the quality of life, aging well, level 1 peace of mind planner. It would be an honor to walk beside you in this process. I have 5 spots open to personally guide you and those who want to walk through the peace of mind planner and have me on the journey with you. And so if you feel that this was a yes, and you want to claim your spot to do the PMP, please speak to me right after this presentation, and I'll personally walk you through the next steps. End of life can be the natural, sacred experience it was meant to be with the right education, kindness, and support. Thank you so much for being part of this positive change.